Hey, welcome to another edition of Kyle Meredith with. It's the interview series presented by WFPK at WFPK.org, Consequence, and the Consequence Podcast Network. Thanks as always for making your way here, checking out the series. You know what to do. You like what you see, what you hear, hit that subscribe button. I put out 3 new interviews every single week, so it's a great way to keep up with all of your favorite artists. One of my all-time favorites. I'm always lucky to get to speak to him. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Les Claypool, hello.
Aloha.
It is good to see you again. Lots going on. I feel like in the Les Claypool world, you're going to be actually, I should point out, back here in Louisville, May 30th, Old Forester's Paris Town Hall, playing the a tribute to Kings tour, where you're covering Rush, the album from front to back. What this is the continuation of the tour, right?
Correct. Yeah. We're doing a big run through Canada, and we missed some shows last summer because of hurricanes and COVID. So
yeah. Well, this is
I like the way you say it, Louisville. Like people from Louisville say Louisville. I love it. I can't get it. That shows that I'm an outsider.
It's I've noticed that it's a weird thing to get. Somebody told me once that if you say it like Elvis would, but with marbles in your mouth, you get kind of close to it, whatever that means.
All right, I'm gonna get it now. I'll nail it.
That sounded all right. It has been cool watching you guys on this tour and everything. Your storied history, of course, with Rush. You know, the early concerts, your friendships with the band, and going back, of course, 30 years ago. I think 30 years ago this year, 1992. Was that's when you all toured with Rush, right?
I try not to think like that. But just.
Oh, if that's a problem, you're going to enjoy the rest of this interview right here.
Okay, great.
There's going to be a lot of time traveling.
Yeah.
I was trying to think back though, because 1992, you know, not completely broken into the mainstream buzz bend of the MTV world. But here you are opening up for, you know, a legendary, and to be so different than I would expect what those fans would think. What was your perception of the Rush fans thought of Primus at the time?
Well, the strange thing is because I was one of those Rush fans going to all those shows and being very scrutinizing. And the thing about Rush fans, they're very discerning, but incredibly polite. So even if they didn't like what you were doing, they would have, you know, been polite about it, I think, because I talked Getty and those guys into taking the Melvins out with them. And I watched that show at the Cow Palace, and I watched the people just squirming in their seats as the Melvins were blasting over their faces. And the Melvin sound man was notoriously loud. So it was a much different experience than we had opening for them. It went great for us. I mean, you know, obviously there's a lot of parallels you can draw. I mean, there's a lot of differences, but there's a lot of you know, 3-piece, guy with a giant drum kit, guy with a big nose on the bass and singing. You know, so their fans actually took to us quite well, and that's why they took us on tour a few times.
Yeah, it's a great lineup, and here you are again. Covering that album front to back, and you've had some time to do it now. You know, there have been some shows. When you get inside it like this, at this point, do you find that you're finding anything new? Is it still offering you anything?
Well, we haven't played it in a few months now because we've, you know, been off. So I don't remember any of it. So now we have to go back in and practice and relearn it. Is there things new about it? I mean, I don't really know. I mean, it's hard because we're so inside of it. But, you know, it was definitely, Primus, people think we rehearse all the time to do all this crazy shit. And we're the laziest band on the planet. We never rehearse. We'll write songs, learn the songs, and that's it. You know, we very rarely rehearse. And when we do rehearse, we play for a little bit and jam around, and we go drink wine and eat steaks. But for the Rush thing, we had to rehearse, and we rehearsed a lot. And it was actually a pretty amazing bonding experience for us, because we got this new rehearsal space. The guys came in from out of town, and we had to really work hard, because if you're going to take on Rush, you got to, like I said, Rush fans are very, very discerning. And we had to do everything as close to the original as we possibly could.
Yeah,
right down to even using some of their instruments.
Oh, right. But don't you have that moment where you want to Primus it up a little bit?
Well, in the end, my son was listening to some of the rehearsals because he has a little film production spot right there in the mixing room, and he's like, Dado, it sounds great, everything sounds great, but you need to quit trying to sing it like Geddy. Sing it like you would sing it, but, And I was like, yeah, okay. And so it got to the point where some of these things, because I even talked to Geddy about it. I was like, how the hell did you sing in that upper stratosphere? Was that falsetto or full voice? He's like, oh no, it was full voice. He goes, that's why I don't do a lot of those songs anymore. But there's certain characters in the Primus world, like Sergeant Baker, where it's Sergeant Baker, it gets up there. Mm-hmm. So there's times when I'm getting ready to do a part on like Cygnus, and I'll just think, okay, go to the Sergeant Baker voice, and I'll take that, and I'm able to do it. So it is vocally, it's more Primus, but I don't think I'm too far off. But some of those notes are just, it's like only Geddy and Dolphin can hit those notes.
Legendary notes. Well, that same year, I guess you guys were touring Miscellaneous Debris, the EP that just came out. Had you guys doing these cover songs, which I hadn't listened to in a while. It was really fun, kind of going back and checking those out. And my first thought, Intruder comes on, and again, not having heard it well, it's like, wait a second, did Korn take their entire sound from the way you guys did Intruder? Because man, that sounds like they could have.
Yeah, I have no idea. But yeah, Intruder, that's I was we all were actually, but I was a massive Peter Gabriel head back in the, his early stuff. Shock the Monkey, I think, is one of the greatest albums of the 80s. I mean, not Shock the Security with Shock the Monkey on it, but so to do some Gabriel was always a treat. I think we've covered a couple Gabriel tunes over the years.
Yeah, you end up doing with Rhinoplasty. Same with XTC. They made both those EPs on there as well.
Yeah, and it's funny because people don't usually. We deliberately did some of these records to pay homage to some of these heroes, and it's funny because we never really get the Gabriel XTC parallel. People don't. I think you're the only ones that ever brought it up, to be honest with you. But yeah, we were all huge XTC fans, and that last and Dukes of Stratosphere, of course,
Yeah, especially at FPK, we play a lot of XTC. We play a lot of XTC and Peter Gabriel too, but because we like them. Our mid-morning host used to own the record store Ear Ecstasy, which was named after them. So it's sort of in my world all the time anyway. So I'm sure that's one reason why it jumped out. But sound-wise, it does make sense. I mean, the way you guys did Nigel, it's such a classic reading of that track. If I'm not trying to be too heady when I say it like that, but it's a great cover.
Well, sometimes it sort of depends. Like some songs, it's almost sacrilege to try to do them, and if you do, you kind of have to bend them in your own way, which we did on Miscellaneous Debris on all those songs except for maybe Amos Moses. But with the Rush thing, you have to do it just like it or parody it. You can't. There's no in between. You know what I mean?
Now, of course, you got the you're able to call up Geddy, as you're saying, talk to them, run this whole ideas by them in whatever fashion. But when you're putting out those covers, like, did you have that opportunity with any of the other moments, like Andy Partridge or calling up anybody in Pink Floyd, that you're going to be covered? Like, did those moments get to happen, or do you at least hear from them afterwards?
I've never met any of them. Well, I've met Roger Waters before, but I didn't know any Floyd people or Gabriel. I've never met Gabriel. I wouldn't know what to say to Gabriel. But I did hear a great story from Warren Haynes once told me. It was Warren and Farmer. Farmer was his old guitar tech. And I guess maybe Farmer was working for Jerry Reed at some point. I'm not sure. But they were like, yeah, Jerry, have you heard of this guy, Les Claypool, Primus? He's a huge fan of yours and blah, 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 blah. And they did Amos Moses. And he played him Amos Moses. And Jerry got kind of pissed off. He said, "You're going to tell me that weirdo motherfucker was influenced by me? I don't." He got all bent out of shape.
You waved that flag with pride. Then that's good.
Yeah, so I thought it was pretty good. But never met Jerry. I would have loved him. I would have loved to play with Jerry Reed. Oh my God, I love his guitar playing.
Absolutely. I think one of the so you and I have done an interview a few times, and I think one of the ones we talked about our love of early country and Americana and things like that. I'm sure Jerry Reed came up. I'm a big fan as well, and you know.
Yeah, well, I mean, I used to buy when I was a kid. That shows how ancient I am. Every time I'd get $1, I'd buy a 45. And so if I ever got an A on my report card, I would get $1 and I would go buy a 45. I didn't have too many 45s if you're getting my drift there. But one of the very first 45s I ever bought, if not the very first one, was Amos Moses.
Wow.
So, but it's funny because I've been playing with Billy Strings lately, and I was talking to him about Jerry Reed, because that old Billy can twang it up, and I actually told him the farmer Warren Haynes Jerry Reed story. So, but it's interesting how all that stuff kind of comes around, all these different. I mean, it's odd. I'm doing, I just we just recorded some new Primus. I'm working on stuff with Sean Lennon, and I'm doing this twang thing with Billy Strings. So I'm and at the same time learning Rush songs. So it's kind of, my world is quite diverse these days musically.
Yeah. So you throw a pandemic in when nobody can tour, and for fans, this is what I was hoping to hear. From like all of my favorite artists. It's like all we've done is make new music. That's what I wanted.
I did nothing. During the pandemic itself, I was dead. It was odd. It was all this. You would think with all the turmoil and free time and with the politics and the pandemic and all this stuff, that it would have been huge fodder and inspiration to go in the studio. And it was the first time in like 30 years I was completely dead. I ended up buying an old excavator and just clearing fire roads all around my property, because we're in California in the fire zone. So, and I did some painting, but that was it. It wasn't until after things started loosening up that I kind of, once we started rehearsing the Primus, the King stuff is when it really, the juices started flowing again.
Kicking it into gear. Well, that's exciting though. So you said there's, I'm guessing what you're saying is there's a new Primus album on the way. There's a new Delirium record on the way. I mean, is that what you're getting at? I mean, will we be getting this in new music album form?
Well, Shiner and I are working on we're working on an idea for an animated piece, but that's still sort of in flux. But the Primus thing, we've recorded. Basically, what I wanted to do was record one giant song, which we did. But you can't just release one song. So we had to have a B-side. So we recorded another song, but then the first song was so giant that we had to do two songs. So now we're doing a 3-song 12-inch single.
Wow. What like based off of what? Like, is it, I don't know what I'm getting at. Are you trying to build like a thematic piece out of it?
I think it's more we didn't have a ton of time to go and make a full-blown album, but also how many people are open to us playing a full-blown album live these days? It's like we got the Rush stuff, we got all our stuff. When you go see a band that you've been seeing for many years, oftentimes watching them play a bunch of new songs isn't necessarily what you so, but trickling in a few songs, I think it will be that way we can actually play these things live, and we're not burying people with all this music that they don't know. You know what I mean? Except for the one song is literally 13 minutes long. So,
so get comfortable anyway. So regardless, right. Yeah, right. It's, I mean, that's
go to the bathroom before we start that one.
What is it? That still is like playing 3 or 4 songs new songs in a row. So it's
but the people don't see it that way.
No, that's true.
But yeah, I don't know. Who the hell knows? The recording industry is in such an odd state these days. We're gonna, release cassettes and NFT versions. That's probably what we'll end up doing. So.
I'm actually excited to hear about the whole version of the project. That sounds exciting. I say that as a fan anyway, to hear what you guys are going. And with Sean too. I mean, the records that you put out so far, God, I've loved. I mean, that chemistry that you all have together, it's pretty beautiful.
Well, that's good, because we have a great chemistry as friends, where it's almost like we're brothers now. It's we laugh, we party, we debate. And I'm very fond of that human, and him and my family are very tight, so it's very cool. And he's fucking good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
so and I'm actually pretty excited about this thing I'm doing with Billy right now too. I mean, Billy's, that guy can fucking play, and he has, I call it salt, because I've always said the greatest musician I've ever worked with is Bernie Worrell, because he had that salt. He had all this technical ability, but he had just the salt of life. He had so many life experiences that just came out in everything he did. And I feel like Billy's kind of this old soul, and the stuff he plays, it just blows my mind. So I'm pretty damn lucky I get to play with these people that I get to play with.
Yeah. Well, and sort of on that subject too, you finally got to do at least a few dates with Oysterhead, the stop and start of that band always. Was there ever talk, as we're talking about new music, there was never a second record there. Could that still happen?
We always talk about it when we're sitting around, but all three of us are so busy, we just haven't really find the time to do it, and that's an undertaking there, the Oysterhead, you got three guys that are pretty, three alpha dogs in the same room. It's more of an undertaking, I think, than just, but who knows?
Right.
I've been talking to Stuart lately about just let's get together and just start jamming on a bunch of shit and see what happens,
Yeah, I was looking, and the anniversaries, the way they go. The first Oysterhead record happened, and of course 9/11 happened. But then you got around to Purple Onion, and I'm bringing that up because that's one of my favorite albums that you've ever done. I still love listening to that one right there, especially when you look at it now, if you do, maybe in this moment, especially through the lens of post 9/11 and something like David McAlaston. I think I'm saying that right. I mean, I don't know what comes to mind. Do you see that album differently now at all than maybe when it came out in sort of present day?
Well, I listened to a little bit of it recently because I was talking to Shiner about all this cancel culture, whatnot, and he's releasing his father's record, which has, woman is the N-word of the world, and I'm like, ooh, how, and I'm asking him, how's he dealing with that? Just the nature of putting that out there. And I said, well, I've got this song Ding Dang on Purple Onion. That's equally as, people look at it wrong, and I could be cancel culture. Not that there's anything to cancel, but it's interesting that how does that pertain to me looking at the record? It was more just I played it for Sean recently, and he was surprised and somewhat concerned for me. But yeah.
So, but in one sense, if you want to, you just leave the song in the past. We've heard of that.
I love playing that song. The song, it's a statement, obviously, mocking the notion of bullying and perception of oneself and perception by other people, and how that affects how you can turn out in life. And there's a few examples in that song. One of them being someone I know that ended up being in prison because of the way they were perceived as a child. I don't know. But in this day and age, there's not a lot of surface scratching as much as there is just looking at what's on the surface and reacting to that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Context is important. I think I've said that in a handful of these interviews and similar subjects as we're talking about right here.
But I do love that Tom Waits put Purple Onion on his top 20 list, and that pops up every now and again, and it makes me smile.
Tom Waits, I'm jumping around years here too, because I was just looking at the Big Round anniversaries, and it was still back in '92. That was the same year that you did was it Earth Died Screaming with him on the Bone Machine. And I'm just, do you still talk to Tom lately? Because I just want to know, is there ever going to be another record? It's been over a decade now.
I mean, I can't speak for Tom, but I know he's always got things clicking around. That's just the type of guy he is. So I can't imagine there's any dust settling on that guy. So
yeah, I'm again just such a huge fan of that. What I was going to get back to, as we were talking, especially with Purple Onion and the context and the characters, it's hard not to bring up Sathington Willoughby as well, because I guess, I don't know how you see it. These characters like this, do they give you the opportunity to approach certain types of social commentary in an easier way?
Yeah, I mean, that is my vehicle. That's my conduit to. It's funny because this new song that we're releasing with Primus, it's called Conspiranoia, and it's 13 minutes long. And I played it for my son. My son has become this pretty amazing sounding board for me lately. In fact, he's making the Primus documentary right now, and he was helping Sean and I with the script on this thing we're working on. He's a game major grad, and so he does all this crazy digital this and that and the next thing, but he really wants to make film. He's been making films. He did this thing with me and Robert Trujillo, and he does all these little shorts. But anyway, so I played this song Conspiranoia for him, and he was like, Dad, it's coming off a little preachy. You might want to, the one thing he's even referred to this, he goes, the one thing I'm learning doing all these interviews for the Primus documentary is how you guys have created this universe with all these characters. There's all these characters that voice their opinions. And he said, I don't see that in this song. So I went back and I rewrote the lyrics to this song and re-recorded them. And now there's characters and they're expressing their viewpoints in a tongue-in-cheek way. It's not as in your face as it was. And it's more me. It's more, but I took my son pointing that out for me to do it. But for me, it all started with my vocals. It's like I would be in bands and I'd write these songs, and I didn't like the way the singers would do my songs. So I couldn't sing for shit. So when I started Primus, I just kind of always thought I was the narrator, and I'd put on, I'm doing John the Fisher. I'd be John the Fisherman. I'd be the guy, the Herald of the Rocks guy, or I'd be, Sergeant Baker. I'd put on these. I would actually think like Mel Blanc of a character. And that's how I would do the songs, because I never had confidence in myself as a singer. So I always thought I was the narrator. It wasn't until the 2000s when I started playing with Trey Anastasio and people like that could actually sing that I started really working on my voice and becoming confident in my voice. But all those characters kind of started through that, because, I can look at the, rally around the family with the pocket full of shells guys and admire it and think it's wonderful, but it's really not me. It's not my persona, it's not me. Mm-hmm. So, but I still have things to say. So I say them through these characters. It's kind of like, watching a Terry Gilliam film or Coen Brothers or, Frank Capra. Frank Capra was amazing at that.
Mm-hmm. Well, the words I had written down by Sathington was conspiracies. You hadn't said the title of that song yet. And it's just like, that's what I thought. It's like, for what's happening in the zeitgeist right now in the world and in culture, it seems like a perfect time for commentary from that character.
Well, we'll see. See if people want to chew on a 13-minute Primus song.
Absolutely. I'll kind of wrap it up with this too, because I know you've got it's not just this, but Bastard Jazz. You got another round of that one coming out, and
Bastard Jazz is just like, that's almost like that's just me. Because I don't have to rehearse or anything. I just go up on stage with like some of the most amazing musicians I know and just fucking like sling pasta at the wall. It's like being in a room with a bunch of great conversationalists and just talking shit. It's such a wonderful thing. There's no preconceived anything.
Mm-hmm. I mean, and for anyone that doesn't know, I mean, a lot of this is just built on improv, right?
Oh, it's all improv. It's just
Yeah.
We don't know what's going to happen when we walk out. I don't even know what instrument. I'm thinking of grabbing. I got this old fretless I used to play, and I haven't used it on hardly anything in years. And I might bust that out at these shows and just for the hell of it, see what happens.
I love seeing that. I'll bring up really quickly. The last time we did an interview was you and me and Sean, and we were in Nashville in the green room or whatever, that venue. And you blew my mind with something that something was so obvious that I just had never thought about. And we were talking about songwriting, and you said most songwriting is just jamming anyway. Most songwriting just comes from jamming. And it's the rest of us who try to put all this importance upon it. That's, I said that parts and everything, but knowing that, you get up on that stage without a net, and I'm talking about with Bastard Jazz now, to get up on that stage and it's just the jamming part. I don't know. Is there a goal in mind, at least when you start? And we all know how jazz works, but for you personally, where the note begins, do you want it to become sort of like a song eventually, or does it just get to exist in this sort of whateverness?
Well, I mean, what defines a song? I think it's more. It's just expression. It's like finger painting. And the thing is, we call it Bastard Jazz. It's kind of taking the piss out of everything because, I've had a few people that are like big jazz aficionados that have gone to some of these Q&As that we do and go, so what era jazz are you playing? What, they're trying to get me to define it. And I'm like, no, that's why it's Bastard Jazz. This is like this bastardized thing that's improvisational. It really has nothing to do with any type of traditional anything. So, as far as I think when you have great players, it's way easier to not even worry about the safety net. It's like I could just lay on the ground and it's going to be a good show. You know what I mean? Like I don't even have to fucking play. These guys are monsters. So
I'm excited to see what comes out of that as well. And beyond that, I know the music. You said script with Sean. I don't know what that means, but that sounds interesting as well. That's not just an album, I'm guessing.
Yeah, we're still trying to figure out what the hell it is. So I can't go too much into it because we're still scratching our heads as to what the hell we're doing, but we're trying to write some sort of narrative. Yes.
Yeah. Wine keeping you busy too? Do you have you been able to kind of, put your foot in that dirt through all of this last couple of years?
I just drink it. My wife is more in charge of peddling it and making sure it happens. I design the labels and I drink it, and I invent the hot dogs every now and again because we sell fancy wieners at the tasting room out of a 20-foot fiberglass hot dog.
Oh, that's beautiful.
It's pretty amazing, actually. Yeah. Here, I'll show you a picture. I found this thing in San Diego a handful of years ago. A couple of my friends standing in front of it.
Yeah.
Look at this thing. It's amazing. Can you see it? The 20-foot wiener with two 6-foot wieners in front of it.
That's beautiful. I'm going to be
it's Wham-All Wiener Wagon.
I'm going to be seeing Maynard tonight with Tool. Do you find yourself ever tasting the other musicians' wines as well? Have you tried his or Dave Matthews or any of those?
I've had Maynard's. I mean, Maynard's the fucking real deal. I mean, look, our Pinot is unbelievable. It's spectacular. I have Cellar Palate. It's one of the best Pinots you can get in Northern California. And I can say that because I don't personally make it. We got this guy, Ross Cobb. We've had him for years now. And he's like the guy. And the only reason we got him is he's a bass player. Now he's a very good friend. But at the beginning, he was a bass player. He wanted to make my wine. And we sell our wine in one restaurant, and that's French Laundry. And it's only because it's the French Laundry. Otherwise, we don't sell it to any restaurants. We just sell it all direct. But Maynard actually makes his wine. He built his winery. He's building another winery. He actually is the winemaker. I mean, so, he's the real deal. And he's they have that appellation down there in Arizona, which nobody ever thinks of Arizona wines, but he's actually, if anybody's going to put Arizona wines on the map, it's going to be him because he's very passionate about it. He's very intelligent and he knows what the hell he's doing. And I think he's got a good palate. So
I just had him on the show talking about that too, and the way he puts a lot of that money right back into the community around it. I mean, I think he's doing great things over there. Just
yeah. Have you ever been? We were just there. We were just out in was it Cottonwood? Where he's building his new place, and we ate at his restaurant. And he was out of town at the time we were touring through, but it's spectacular.
Yeah, I haven't been out there yet. One of these days. But he
doesn't have a 20-foot wiener.
Some kind of pull quote right there. Les, thank you so much as always. Again, you're going to be back here in Louisville. I'm excited to see you at the N2 Old Forester's Paris Town Hall, May 30th. Sir, it's always a pleasure.
All right. Ciao.
Take care.